Hi, everyone. I'm Luann Saraga Walters.
And I'm Sharon Saraga Walters. You may know us as the creators of the Global Gratitude Summit.
In these uncertain times, we really wanted to bring back some experts that could talk with us frankly and openly and honestly about how do we deal with everything that's going on. Today, we are talking with two experts, starting first with Dr. Patty Hlava. She is a retired psychotherapist with an extensive background of teaching in university settings, her PhD in psychology, her research on the effects of gratitude on wellness, which has also been published in the International Journal of Transpersonal Psychology, the Journal of Humanistic Psychology, and in several books. And she really has a passion for teaching people how gratitude can shift that mental state of being. And I think that it's really applicable today. Welcome, Dr. Hlava. It's very nice to have you.
Thank you.
You are going to have kind of your work cut out for teaching us this effect, because I don't think we expected anything of this magnitude to ever happen.
No.
So the enormity of what's going on is a big adjustment, but as is a lot of people having to work from home. Many people have lost their jobs. A lot of people are furloughed. Kids aren't in school. So I guess let's just start with the first part that I wanted to talk with you about. And that is, now that people are home, they're together all in one space. What
Yep.
can that look like? So Sharon's going to ask you that first question.
So how can couples deal with the immediate stress through a gratitude practice, and why is that helpful?
It's such a wonderful question, and it's fairly multi-layered. So with everything that's happened with the coronavirus, it's come in and it's really swept the foundation and structure of what we've known as normal to be from us, which is really jarring to our nervous system. Our body doesn't know quite what to do with that. And suddenly we're enclosed. Like, a lot of our previous releases for stress are no longer available, whether it's going out to eat, whether it's going out to listen to music. Things are closed. We're suddenly with these people or completely alone. So we're in these confined spaces. So what we want to do is find a space to soothe and nourish our nervous system, and being able to communicate that with our partners. We're being given this really unique opportunity in this to get to know who we are and to get quiet and get really clear on what our needs are. And when we do that, we can actually find a better way to communicate with the people that we're with, being able to say, hey, you know what, I'm realizing this is something that I'm needing. And we get to walk into this really unique space of the yes and this is where gratitude really comes in. It's the yes, I love you, and I need a little space. It's the yes, this is really hard for me, and wow, there's something really awesome here about us having a little bit of time to just sit and get to know each other in a really new way. So it's seeing the whole picture, which is what gratitude really offers us. Like, our mind is wired towards negativity, and I think I've talked about this quite a bit before, where we're wired to see what's negative and scary. And right now, all the input we're getting is negative and scary. We're getting told how hard things are, how many people are sick or dying, and how many new changes are coming up, and new restrictions and limitations, and how we can interact and with whom and when and how. And so all of us are feeling a little bit of that tension in response to that. So the brain is naturally going to focus on that and hang out there, which is going to feed our fear more, which tends to increase our irritability, lower our patience with one another, and make things a little bit harder. So the more we can pause and go, all right, yeah, I'm going to take a moment from that and see what else is also true. Yes, this is scary. And over here, there's this other element of something else that's happening. And I can make a mask that looks really fun from an old concert t-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To change it up.
To change up, to expand our view so that we can see a broader perspective and then communicate that with one another.
You know, I'm seeing a lot of Facebook posts and different social media posts from parents or from wives saying, oh my gosh, I'm all this time with my husband. And probably if we paid more attention to husband posts, we might see the same thing. But it makes me think of something that you just said about how we are so used to the roles that we play with each other within our lives, and now it's magnified. That role of, I'm here to answer your question, or I'm here to serve you in some capacity. Maybe that's only been for 3 to 5 hours a day normally, and now it's 24/7, and that can be exhausting. So how do we um, how do we appropriately and lovingly, and how do we communicate that with, like you had said, I need this time? How can we develop those parameters, whether it's as a couple or as a family with, a lot of kids, or maybe one or two kids? How do we do that in an interactive practice?
I love that question, Lynn. It's something I refer to sometimes as compassionate assertiveness.
Ah,
There's this point of pausing, and pausing is one of the most profound practices that we can do right now. There's a moment of pause, and you might even say out loud, I need to pause right now. And it's just an opportunity to take a breath and literally exhale. The more we exhale, we activate the calming system in the body, the opposite of the fight, flight, freeze response. We activate the rest and digest, sometimes called the tend and befriend. And we want to tend and befriend the people we're sharing space with right now. So we exhale, activate the system, and say, what's happening in the space between us right now? So again, we're kind of not pointing fingers, not blaming. We're saying, what's happening in the space between all of us right now? And then being able to own our part. And being able to say, right now, I'm noticing that I'm feeling tense. I'm noticing that I'm feeling tired or overwhelmed, and being able to name it. And then saying that this is something that would be helpful for me right now. And then being able to ask the other person, what do you need, or what are you hearing? So it's being compassionate and saying, I know we're all in this, because we're all feeling some of those same triggers. We're all feeling, what's happening? Like nothing's the same for anybody.
mm-hmm.
Being able to pause, reflect, and then create that space between you and the other people in your shared space, whether it's your partner or your children. And being able to say, hey, I need a moment. And if it's a child, being able to say, hey, I hear you, and we're going to pause for a moment together, and then I'll answer your question. It's acknowledging what's happening first and then responding.
You had also mentioned a minute ago about people who are no longer in a social setting; they're home alone, and I want to talk about that in a second. But let's continue along with this family theme with Sharon's next question.
So, how can parents talk with their children about what this is? Age appropriately.
That's a good. That's scary, because it's
Great
a scary
question.
thing, right?
Yeah, it's something that we want to pay attention to. And the first thing is that we want to keep talking about it. Don't be afraid to talk about it. And take your cues from your child. Let them ask, let them talk, let them share what they know, let them ask their questions, and respond honestly without giving too much information, because you don't want to information overload. The job as the parent is, you're the translator of the world right now. You're the one who's filtering and helping make sense out of things. So listen to what they're sharing, their questions, and go into a place of reassurance. Like, name, yes, this is real, and this is how we're taking care of ourselves. These are the things we're doing to protect ourselves and make sure we're safe as a family. And then empowering them, like, here's what you can do. Again, to remind them that they have this ability to protect themselves too. So when you wash your hands, this is what you're doing. Like, this is how you do it. And let that be something that is not coming from a place of fear, but from a place of fact, from a place of grounding and clarity. Like, hey, when you're doing this, this is how we stay safe right now. And then it gives them a sense of autonomy. And then when you're out in the world, it's pointing out what's good, whether it's seeing something on the news or seeing something that someone else is doing in the house or walking down the street. Like, oh, if you're walking in the park, notice how those people are staying, roughly 6 feet apart. They're showing each other that they care about each other that way.
I
by
like
the,
that.
you're highlighting the things that people are doing to stay safe in an empowering way and being able to bring appreciation to that too. And that's where again you can bring gratitude in. It's like we can be thankful for this space that we have outside to walk, or we can be around other people, but at a safe enough space to keep everyone healthy right now while this is
Mhm.
happening.
Mhm.
So highlighting that here's the stuff that's scary and true, and here's the gifts of resources that we have to care for ourselves and others.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And now let's take that turn and go towards the people who their social life, their family was their work life. That
Yeah.
work family, and now they're uh, estranged from that a little bit. They don't have the ability to go into work and have that kind of interaction.
Yeah.
Um, how how can somebody utilize a practice of gratitude, and how would that shift you in being in that space of being alone?
I'm so glad you asked that question, Lynn. There's so much talk around the fear and the anxiety that's coming up around coronavirus, and that shows up, I think, very much when we're enclosed with a lot of people. But when there's isolation, what another real dominant emotion is grief. And I think that sometimes a lot of the people that are feeling more isolated, there is a grieving. There's this loss of connection, and that's showing up in all different places. And gratitude is such a powerful practice because it actually helps us transmute and transform grief and helps us integrate it. Because when we're feeling grief, we can actually go into the depth of our capacity for love and really see the richness of there and the richness of how much we value those connections, the richness of that capacity for connection. And knowing that this, like all things, is temporary, right? That this is, we're moving through a transition. We don't know how long this is going to be, but on the other side of this, there's a depth of appreciation for our connection as people. And that's more
Mm.
prevalent now than ever.
Mhm,
Like,
mm.
this is the first time that I'm conscious of in the history of humanity that there's not a person on the planet that isn't being affected in some way.
Wow.
This is beyond finance, this is beyond race, this is beyond religion, this is a shared human experience across the globe. So in some ways, we're actually more connected now than we've ever been from a compassion and empathy standpoint. It's human to human. We're all literally in this together. So when we're alone, being able to really step into that compassion of, wow, I am not alone. And that opens the gateway for gratitude and appreciation. There's a connection that is on a very different level than that shared physical space.
I love that you said that, because we always hear the what is that phrase about you don't really value your health until it's gone, kind of a
Right.
thing. And so it's almost the same thing from this standpoint, that we haven't necessarily valued the human connections that we have until they're gone, or until they've changed form in some way, or recreated them. And that might be true for families too, going, yeah, I didn't value so much my alone time until I didn't have
Right.
it.
Right.
But hey, I'm here now. So.
Here it is. And
But so what would you say for one of those individuals who is home by themselves for now and being able to connect virtually? What is a gratitude practice, maybe one of your favorite gratitude practices, that they could put into play to really put those glasses on that you're talking about seeing with an appreciation?
the gratitude letter is the first thing that comes to mind. Is
Mm.
this reaching out? So gratitude, well, in order for gratitude to be an effective practice, we have to take it out of the head and move it into the body. We have to actually embody the feeling state of it. And so, often people are like, oh, do a gratitude list. And yes, gratitude lists and journals are great, except we tend to then just bullet list them. That doesn't help so much. So this idea of writing a gratitude letter, or even, in our current life, sending a gratitude email or text, like taking a moment and actually acknowledging another person that has affected you in some way, because right now you're so conscious of that, of how these people in our lives have actually, like, wow, I really miss this person. So being able to say, hey, I'm sitting here thinking of you, and I'm remembering this and the way that I felt in that interaction with you, writing it down, we start to feel it again. because our body believes what the brain is thinking. Like if our mind is focused on recalling an event where we felt loved and connected, we're going to experience that emotion. And that's going to awaken the gratitude and the appreciation of that experience and that relationship. So suddenly that feeling of isolation is dissolved because you're with that person in that moment. Our mind is there, our heart is there, we're there. You send that to that person, they experience it too. The gratitude letter is such a powerful practice that the research supports that when we do this practice, people report a 20% spike in happiness and wellness in all areas of life that lasts 3 to 6 months.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Like that's pretty big. So we're looking at, we don't know how long this is going to go, but if a gratitude letter can give you a 20% boost of feeling good for 3 months, I'm going to take that.
Yeah, I love that.
Take that dose. So writing it out, but really letting yourself feel the feelings. It's one of the most important things to do, and it's to acknowledge the challenging emotions and know that gratitude comes with them. Like gratitude isn't about whitewashing stuff and saying, oh, everything's just fine and dandy and I'm going to pretend this isn't here. Gratitude is something that it's so interesting that the more difficult the challenge or hardship or experience we're facing, the more capacity we have to access gratitude. Because gratitude shows up when we can acknowledge that we've received something. We have to be in a space of vulnerability and rawness to acknowledge that we've received something of such value. You can't
That
do
is a
that when we're
beautiful
like,
phrase.
hey.
Wow. I love what you just said about that, because that just speaks to something I've always believed, in the strength of vulnerability, because it's when those kinds of tragedies happen that we allow ourselves to completely open up to whatever that is, and compassion comes out. And any numbers of tragedies that we see, whether it was 9/11 or, Hurricane Katrina, when you see the level of devastation, then people rise to the opportunity of heart expressing, and that comes out. You move from, like you said, from your head into your heart, and the strength of compassion and the strength of that gratitude is what really lifts us up as a society, I think. I love what you just said.
Yeah, it also helps us reintegrate and make sense of things. Like when we're able to look back on a hardship or challenge with gratitude, it's an indication that healing has truly happened. Right? Because we can look back and see the gifts in the adversity, the gift in the challenge, and the pain is no longer attached to it. We know that we've healed and integrated that experience into our new defined self. Every challenge creates an opportunity for us to become another version of ourselves. This is inviting us to step into who do we want to be? How do we live in alignment with a compassionate version of ourselves, a more grateful version of ourselves? That opportunity is here now. So if we go from that angle saying, okay, how do I respond with compassion and gratitude? We acknowledge the hardship and embrace this other piece. Like, oh yes, there are other people that are feeling this too. I'm going to be a little bit kinder. And then suddenly we can receive a little bit more because things are a little bit more vulnerable. So we're like, yeah, I'm gonna accept that wave and that kindness as an expression of love, as an expression of the shared humanity for a moment, and feel that as a connection and receive that as a gift. We're feeling things differently now.
That's beautiful, Dr. Hlava.
Yeah, I so relate to that, because I'm thinking that from all that's going on now, it's not just a few people that are feeling this, it's everyone. So everywhere you look, it's so important that we are constantly challenged and have the opportunity to go into our hearts, because it's everywhere. Everyone's experiencing this,
and everybody's experiencing it differently. So we don't really know what our neighbors are experiencing, because we don't have that kind of social interaction that we had before either. That's just, I really like the point that you brought up. So we have one last question for you that Sharon's going to bring through.
Yeah. So can you share with us a family gratitude practice, something that families can do together?
Oh, there's so many. I think one that is fun to do with kids, I think, is if you have kids, is to do a gratitude box. Just have something and you can have colored paper or like Post-it notes or whatever, and just have it nearby, and have the practice of just writing down something and a comment about it. Like, yeah, I had a cookie and it made me happy, whatever. Or, I had this moment and I got to watch the birds sing and I could hear it and it just made me feel really connected to whatever it is. And writing it down and piling them up, because you get to actually see the gratitudes accumulate.
Yeah.
And then choose a day, like make it a special moment to actually dump them out and just go through and read them without having to assign them, like looking for who's, but just like see, like, here's this pile of gratitude, which is super fun. Another thing that is just sort of randomly playful is to really kind of, it's the full expression of gratitude. So it's making it kind of a game of like, instead of the drive-by thanks, which I like to call, like, where you're just like, yeah, thanks for, whatever, you took out the garbage, thanks, whatever, but to actually pause and like make a point of making eye contact, like pause and like really like, thank you for doing that, because when you did that, and then you get to name what you feel. And what's really interesting, I've worked with couples doing this and just like making it into a game. What happens is the kids start mirroring it and just start doing it automatically. And they just start noticing like, hey, you did this, I felt this. And it brings up a level of self-awareness in each person, but it also increases the feeling of connection between everybody and makes it a little bit more playful. We need to feel appreciated as human beings. It's not a desire. It's not a flippant want or a luxury. We need to know that we matter to one another. So when we actually pause and make eye contact, we're giving our nervous system a break. We're seeing that we're connected with another person, and we're verbally acknowledging like, hey, you made a difference to me in that moment when you did that one little thing. And it just boosts the energy in the whole household. And it takes about 4 seconds. So why not?
Well, and that's putting those bank deposits in, those emotional bank deposits in, so that,
Yes.
when you're actually withdrawing a little more than you should from your mom or your dad or your sister or your brother or your kids or whatever, then you've got those additional deposits being put in. Dr. Hlava, thank you for taking the time to talk with us.
And thank you for so many great ideas and just your peaceful way that you speak, and just really calming. It's going to help a lot of people, a lot of families.
Thank you.
That was enjoyable and helpful.
Really good information and thoughts shared by Dr. Hlava. And now we're going to greet our second guest. We're talking about one of the biggest challenges facing literally millions of Americans today. So many people have had to file for unemployment. Businesses are being forced to close. People are being furloughed. A lot of essential workers having to go into conditions that they're unsure of. Our guest is Lisa Ryan. She is certified speaking professional and chief appreciation strategist and an expert on employee engagement, working with companies of all sizes and shapes around the United States and Canada. You might remember her from the Global Gratitude Summit. She specializes in addressing the really tough climates in the workplace culture. And of course, that includes today. It's such a tough time right now. Lisa, thank you for joining us again.
Well, thanks for having me back.
Well, we're turning to you because this is such an unusual, uncertain, radically different, unique time that we've ever had in the history of this country and around the world. So we're going to start sharing off first.
So, Lisa, what are you hearing from your clients?
Well, a lot of the organizations that I speak to are associations. So what they're struggling with is a lot of times when they're putting together their annual conference, that is the main source of their revenue. So, all of a sudden they've had everything that they've been planning for a full year completely not be able to happen. And they started one by one. I mean, I had a pretty full April and May going, and one by one, they just took off, they just canceled their events. I think some of them were trying to hold on as much as they could, but realizing that they don't want to be the ones that put their association members in danger. Mm-hmm. And as we realized the severity of this pandemic, people took it more and more seriously. On the other hand, because most of the associations that I speak to are in the manufacturing and skilled trades, many of them are considered essential workers. So their businesses haven't been impacted as much as others, but there's still a lot of fear that goes along with that, because you're putting these essential workers basically on the front lines instead of, like the rest of us, sheltering at home and doing the best that we can, cooped up in a small space with our loved ones only, or, in a lot of cases by yourself.
Yeah, we were just talking with Dr. Patty Hlava about that, being cooped up in that space with your family. But I'm also thinking, when you're talking about the essential workers, about how so many Americans are trying to come together to support them, whether they're healthcare workers or postal workers or grocery store workers, or like yours with the manufacturing services. And at 8 o'clock at night, whether you're in St. Petersburg or Denver or across the country, people are going out to say, thank you, by whooping and hollering or howling or banging pots and pans. And yet that's a show of support from their communities. But having to go into an office environment or a manufacturing environment, and like you said, it can be very scary. You're the strategist. You're the one who has these incredible tools of awareness for morale and how to really keep up how we feel about where we are. What do you suggest could be a best practice to help someone who is an essential worker in that case?
To make sure that as a manager, you are really recognizing the employees for the good that they're doing. Recognize that you appreciate not only their efforts, but let them know that you care about them as a human being. How are you doing? How's your family? Because again, we have people that their kids aren't in school, or maybe they're dealing with aging parents. Like, my dad's in an assisted living facility and he's been on lockdown for 3 weeks. I can see him through the window, but I have not been able to hug my dad. Yeah. Thankfully, he's being well taken care of, but there's a lot of people that, they are supporting their parents. So it comes down to that basic human connection, where we have to get out of the focus of so much of being about the work, but how are you? Because you as an employer, you are setting the precedent for what you're doing now is going to really impact your employees in the future, because they're going to look back on this at some point and say, wow, I could not have asked for a better boss during this. That person really cared about me. They cared about my family. They took care of us and really helped to alleviate the pain. Or on the other hand, they're like, what? I am so done with them. That my boss didn't even reach out to me once to see how I was doing or to say thank you, or I didn't know if I had a job. I didn't know if I was getting laid off. I didn't know anything about it. So yeah. It's that realism of, making sure that you're being very transparent with your employees, that you're letting them know how much you appreciate and value them, and really taking a look at what you're doing now is going to define how your employees see you in the future.
I am so glad you brought that up, because it makes me think of two opposite examples. One, we have a good friend who found out that she was on furlough from an email in the morning. She didn't even know. I mean, she had no idea it was even coming, and she went, what? And it was effective that day. And yes, her health benefits are going through the end of April as far as she knows right now, but wow. And on the flip side, there's another person who had the experience of knowing that there were conversations. The CEO kept them informed and actually told them, and had individual calls with each department and each person that was going to have to, on a group call to say, we're sorry, we just can't do this. We're going to have to furlough everybody. So very radically different examples of how two different companies are handling this situation. And I completely understand what you're saying about how employees are going to look at that and go, what am I? Am I a cog in the wheel, or am I a human being?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
My husband's company is a good example of that. He got 2 weeks of pay, and then this week was the week that they're supposed to be on shutdown. Their July shutdown, they moved to this week. And we weren't sure, was he going to get laid off or was he going to get furloughed? And thankfully yesterday he received the email that said, that we care about you, that we want to keep you informed, that you will be in. And they actually said in all caps, in this temporary situation. So just in that use of all caps, of that reassuring their team members that, you know, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that they are doing everything possible to bring them back and to take care. And because it's a furlough, they also restated in the email that, you know, benefits would continue. So that it's a huge relief, not only for us, you know, Scott being part of the management team, but they have hundreds of hourly employees who work there in the shop that, you know, we're probably really worried. Am I going to have to get health benefits? Am I going to have to go on COBRA? And all of that fear has now been alleviated.
Wow.
You're talking about that human to human, just like you said a minute ago. And it makes me think of something that our guest right before your interview had said about going from a head-based interaction to a heart-based interaction, that human to human response. And that is really what a gratitude practice is. It pulls us into that zone. So as a manager, to be able to look through, you know, your gratitude lens to see your employees that are having to do, and even you as a manager have taken the time to look at yourself to say, you know, I'm grateful, one, I've got this position, but two, I can really empower the people who are on my team and helping them.
Yeah.
You know, we also wanted to ask you about specific gratitude practices.
And I want to share one thing too, is as you're talking about this, I also think that if others hear this interview, I don't think it's ever too late for the people to step up in the companies. If they haven't done so now, they could do it right now. You know, I think that people could use that input, and I don't think any time is too late. So I think, you know, you made a good point, and it really, the companies and the employees would so appreciate hearing, if they haven't done so already, heard from the company and the people involved.
It is never too late to say thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So can you suggest, Lisa, a gratitude practice for someone who's the employees working from home, and how to focus during this uncertain time, a gratitude practice?
Well, the 5 practices that I promote the most, number 1, the gratitude journal. You know, to just take the time every day and physically write down 3 to 5 things for which you're grateful, and adding some detail to it, because that way it not only gets you into the feeling of appreciation, but, you know, sometimes we wake up, and I'm the same way. You wake up and it's like, oh my goodness, this, you know, March was like the longest year ever. Is this ever going to end? And then we can turn back a couple pages and be reminded. So writing down the gratitude journal, expressing verbal appreciation to people, you know, pick up the phone. I'm lucky in that I get to be in my house with my husband, you know, and a lot of people don't have, you know, they have family members that maybe it's not a great environment to be in, or maybe they're by themselves. So pick up the phone, reach out to friends, reach out to family to check in. Hey, how you doing? And I appreciate you and that you're here. The thank you note or the letter of appreciation. We have plenty of our time on our hands right now to actually sit down. And in the world of Lisa Ryan, the thank you note, thank you for something. Thank you for gift, thank you for the dinner. The letter of appreciation, thank you because these are the reasons that I value having you in my life. And then the 5th way is to simply reflect on the power of gratitude, and to make that some kind of regular, consistent practice, that we give ourselves the gift of looking for the things that we have. That, because I know that there's going to be a whole lot of gratitude when this all opens. Think about how many years we have been taking restaurants for granted. Mm-hmm. Think about how many years we have been, you know, hopping into the car and running to the grocery store totally for granted. And that is going to change. Everything is changing, and a lot of it's going to be for the good, because we'll have this new level of appreciation for the things that maybe we haven't had access to for the last couple months.
That's really true.
That is so true. I mean, that is so true. And I think that we're all, you know, there's an initial phase of, I guess I'd call it withdrawal from taking for granted things, because we're so used to a certain way of it working, of just being able to hop in the car, like you said, and go to the grocery store. And then there's this withdrawal of, oh my gosh, I don't have access to this anymore. Or, oh my gosh, I have to put my face mask on. Or, you know, all these different things that the freedoms that we've known have radically changed. And we have a deeper appreciation for what that is, because we don't have it. Kind of like I'd said a few moments ago with Patty Hlava, we when we are sick and we don't have good health anymore, we're suddenly aware of how good it felt to feel good, you know.
Right.
So hopefully we'll maintain that. Well, we are certainly grateful for you taking time to come out, and I also want to say I hope that you're able to find time to rest and to relax. We've discovered that we have a great need and appreciation for the ability to step back and just be instead of doing. So wishing that for you as well, Lisa. Any final thoughts in this crazy time that we have?
I think that giving ourselves the gift of grace as well, because all of a sudden we've been given all this time that we can do, we can take on those projects and we can get this done and we can get that done. And sometimes to just step back and be okay with being lazy and watching movies and, you know, just junk food for the mind. Throw on some reality TV and just let your mind turn to mush for a while. We're going to be we're in this together. And of course, stay safe, wash your hands, stay home, wear a mask, do everything that you can to take care of yourself, to take care of others, so that we can defeat this once and for all and go back to whatever our new normal is going to be.
Oh, amen to that. Yes, thank you so much. Yes. Lisa, we appreciate you. We appreciate everything that you're doing, the insight that you have. You're like this gratitude HR guru all rolled up into one, and just such a great value. Best to you and your husband, and we hope that you stay well and healthy as well.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.